welcome to this interview on money control. We are in conversation with Debjani Ghosh, the president of NASSCOM. Such a pleasure to have you on the platform, Debjani. And it's a very exciting time for the Indian IT industry. During the onset of the pandemic, people thought this is going to be doomsday. What are IT companies going to do? Their campuses are empty. But they sort of just reimagined the entire business model, and now they've actually gained in a huge way. I mean, who would have imagined double-digit growth coming back to the industry, that too after 5 or 6 years, if I'm not mistaken? So, do you see this sustaining, the momentum sustaining for the next few years? Are we in the beginning of a multi-year digital super cycle, like many people are saying?
I do believe that we are at the beginning of something very different. I do believe that we are at the beginning of a completely new playbook that is right now playing out for the industry. Now, a few things, a lot of people ask me about, is this a sustainable recovery? I'm glad you didn't do it. You asked about, how with change sustainable. I strongly believe, Chandra, this is not a recovery, but this is a rebuild for the entire industry. And if you look at some of the key trends in terms of what are we rebuilding, or what is the transformation that's taking place, right? First is just the basic foundational shift from cost advantage to customer advantage. You're seeing that happen across sectors. I mean, a classic example of that is companies like Infosys leveraging outcome-based business model with their customers, right? I mean, this is the beginning of many such innovations we will see as far as operational models are concerned. Digital capability development. I mean, not only we've seen accelerated investments on skilling, but look at the acquisition landscape. Look at what companies, acquisition today is becoming a huge competitive differentiator. And companies are trying to build out their innovation strength by getting new companies on board. The shift to hybrid, a lot of people simplify it tremendously, thinking that hybrid is a one-size-fit-all model. It will never be. Hybrid gives you tremendous opportunities, again, to build differentiation. So every company is going to tinker with it to figure out what is going to be its right balance. And then last but not the least, just the shift to new segments. Healthcare was an obvious one in the last 2 years, but we are also seeing companies pay attention to markets that they have not really focused on in the past. So there's tremendous, a new thinking, or rather a new lens that's coming into it. Digitization, as you know, is increasing by the day. So I don't have to tell that story. It's happening across sectors. If we can build a foundation that frankly allows us to do two things. One is move from the cost advantage pitch that we have been so well known for to cost plus customer advantage, but customer advantage above all. And second, if we can ensure that talent continues to stay a competitive advantage for Indian IT, I absolutely think we are on a good wicket. This is going to be a very long innings, and absolutely it's going to be sustainable.
Freshworks listing on NASDAQ was, a huge tipping point for the SaaS sector in India. So again, do you see a convergence here? Are IT companies getting into SaaS, or do you see SaaS companies working with IT? How do you see this shaping up in the near term?
So the lines will blur and hopefully go away at some point in time. They have to. I think the traditional way we have looked at these sectors is tremendously outdated. So, and if you look at the priorities of a typical IT services company today, right, it's platforms and products, platform products and people above all, right? So those lines are completely blurring, and thank God they are. I just think they need to blur a little faster.
What are companies going to do beyond increasing the number of freshers they hire? Will we see fresher pools of talent? Is this an opportunity to hire from smaller towns in India, tap into fresh pools of talent? How do you think companies can really deal with the current situation?
And all of the above and some more. Chandra, everything you said, yes, and some more. See, why is there a talent war today? Now, we've been saying for a very long time, for the last 3 years, or maybe even when I was at Intel, strongly believe that talent is completely reimagining the competition landscape for companies and in technology. But today, it's doing so for all sectors. The fact that we have collectively, and this is not just India, by the way, this is a global problem. Every country is going through the same challenge. And I don't know if you caught it, but one of the recent McKinsey reports called out something like 15 million US workers have quit their jobs in just April 2021. Right. So this is a problem that's impacting every country, every sector. And why is it impacting everyone? Because globally, I do not believe we have done enough to grow the base, the talent base that existed fast enough to meet the demand. So today, while demand is growing at a 30% plus CAGR, supply is growing at maybe 19 to 20% CAGR. And that is fundamentally the problem. So there's a very small pool of people who are what you call employable in the digital economy, who have what we call digital skills. And unless and until we grow that pool faster, we are going to continue to see challenges. So the question now is, what do we have to do, at least as India, to grow the pool fast enough, not just to meet our local needs, but also to meet some of the global needs, because that's what's going to give us tremendous advantages globally. Business today will go where talent is.
The obvious solution to the talent crisis in India is women. And I think there was a PwC statistic which said there are at least 10 million women who have dropped out. Qualified women who have work experience. So are companies doing enough to bring them back? Could this perhaps be the obvious solution to cope with the war for talent?
We've seen a significant increase in efforts to get women back, including flexible, and this whole remote working or hybrid work is helping to an extent because you can give them flexibility. But then again, I keep telling companies, don't make the mistake of assuming just because it's a woman, she would prefer to work from home. In fact, what I'm seeing is exactly the opposite, where women are saying the day school starts, I'm going to be back in office. I need to get back, right? So I think what we have to do is give them the choice. And to me, that's the beauty of the hybrid model, Chandra. It's about choice. It's about choice on whether you work from home or you work from office, and how do you balance both out, both for companies and employees. So yes, I do see companies doing a lot in terms of figuring out how to build more flexibility into the system. I think the gig economy, once we embrace it and once we make it part of how we work, the formal playbook of the IT industry, will actually offer women a lot more opportunities. So all that said and done, in fact, we were just talking to a few of the HR heads this week. And the chaos and the craziness is slowly stabilizing. It was at its peak last month, but it is because everybody is realizing you can be part of that game, but that game is not sustainable. So everyone's realizing that, and everyone's figuring out what is a sustainable strategy. So I think hopefully in a few months, while talent will still be in shortage, but we will see some sanity come back to the system.
Okay, fair enough. And in terms of the new kinds of roles getting created because of this digital transformation that you mentioned, can you take us through what kind of new roles are being created for the industry, which perhaps were not there, say, a year or a year and a half before?
I mean, every single technology, Chandra, be it cloud, be it data science, be it cybersecurity, there are tons of new roles getting created in each of these, right? A classic one is, what is the hottest skill requirement, or where do you have the maximum premium in data science today?
Which one?
Storytelling.
Wow.
You need data scientists who are brilliant storytellers, because the data is useless unless you can
You're able to
convince the users
contextualize
to
it.
use the insights and communicate the insights in such a compelling way that your customers will see value in it. So data into value, the person that converts the data into value has to be a brilliant storyteller. Okay, so it's just amazing to see how these kind of roles are coming up based on the needs of the industry. But that said, it is, I think, for the youngsters today, my advice is still the same. Focus on three things. Focus on the foundation, build a strong foundation in technology. Uh, More than anything else, have the right attitude, because companies hire for attitude, aptitude.
What do you make of this boom? Is it sustainable? People are constantly wondering, what are these companies? Many of them are not even profitable. We don't understand what they do. We hope it's not, temporary and everything. So, what is your own sense in the way this is played out?
See, the boom is here to stay, at least for a while. It is definitely here to stay, especially with what's happening in China. The global investors are looking for a safer, promising market to bet on. And India meets all the criteria today, right? We have the innovation ecosystem, we have a consumption market. I mean, we have a stable government. So we sort of, all the checks are there. So I absolutely believe that the boom is here to stay. At least, you can't predict beyond 3-5 years in our world, and I never do, but at least for the next 3 to 5 years, there absolutely. Is it what I obsess about, Chandra, is, for example, it's great that we've seen so many IPOs happening, and we'll continue. I think October is going to be a month for IPOs. We're going to see tons of them out there. Yeah. I think this is going to bring back a lot of discipline into the ecosystem about ensuring that you definitely have a roadmap to profitability. Because while the market is absolutely betting on you right now, with all the potential, they're betting on potential, they're betting on innovation, etc., etc. But once you go public, after some point, the same market will start demanding the numbers. Profits. They will start demanding the profits, right? So I think it's actually a very good thing, because I do believe this will start a spiraling effort of startups starting to think, if they have to think about our IPO, they have to think about their roadmap to profitability. There is no other option, right? So I do believe that this, now that so many companies have done it and done it relatively successfully, it's going to be a good message for the startup ecosystem to say, hopefully, I hope our startups are going to be patient, because road to IPO does take a few years. But ultimately, if that's the aspiration, then you also have to start very seriously thinking about making money. And once you start doing that, that's where sustainability comes in. Nothing else, unfortunately, creates a sustainable business model.
On that note, Debjani, thank you very much for talking to us on Money Control on a diverse set of topics. This is a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Chandra. Always great talking to you.